Mick never had much to say to them. He could understand why the ladies at a small world daycare would rather talk to the polite, smiling, nicely dressed mother who dropped Dylan off every morning than the nasty ironworker who picked him up in the afternoon. The first few times Lane sat facing him in the living room with a yellow note in her hand and that look of deep concern on her face, Mick told her flatly that she and Dylan's teachers were overreacting, that Dylan was perfectly normal. Lots of kids preferred to play alone. Lots of kids refused to eat lunch. Lots of kids, particularly 4-year-olds, fell on their faces whenever they tried to jump rope. But then came the weird stuff. A normal kid might gripe about his shirt irritating him, but he wouldn't strip down to his tighty-whities in public and leave a trail of clothes all over the playground. "Itchy," Dylan explained. He had a normal vocabulary for his age, but never used more words than necessary because he had trouble getting them right. He lisped a little, and his G's came out like D's. He was a gifted mimic and could imitate virtually any kind of noise with uncanny accuracy, yet he couldn't make words come out right. For the most part, Mick managed to calm Lane's fears until the evening she blocked his view of Monday Night Football and read him the latest note from Dylan's teacher. "He does what?" He picked up the remote and muted the game. "He licks her ankle." One of her eyebrows went up, a bad sign, and she sat there straightening out the crumpled note against her knee, staring at it. "He does it a lot lately, and she finds it disconcerting." "Which one?" "Which ankle? What possible difference?" "I meant which teacher," Mick said. "Oh, Mrs. Fensdemacher, why?" He shuddered. "Well, if it was Miss Gabriel, I could sort of understand it. But Mrs. Fensdemacher, ugh." "He's 4, Mick. Grow up." 2 days later, she took a day off and carried Dylan to the pediatrician, who asked a few questions and referred him to a child psychologist, who asked more questions and referred him to an occupational therapist, who asked still more questions and then put Dylan through a whole battery of tests. She put lead weights on his arms and legs to see how it made him feel, then laid him in the floor and put a weighted blanket on top of him. She had him dancing, hopping, marching, and literally jumping through hoops. None of the doctors was ready to commit to a diagnosis, though they all felt there was reason for concern. They scheduled more appointments. But the day Dylan put Ryan Carden up against the wall, and it took 3 grown women to keep him from strangling the larger boy, the call from a small world was approaching hysteria. It would be their last warning. "Boy needs discipline," Mick said. It was after supper. He was drying a plate while Lane washed. Dylan was in the tub and the other 2 were off doing homework. "You and those old ladies at the daycare center are too soft, that's all. My old man would have killed me if he'd been there." Lane let that one slide. She knew Mick didn't want to be like his father. "Seriously, Mick, what are we going to do? The daycare people are trying to be sympathetic, but they see him as a threat now. The very next incident, no matter how minor, he'll get expelled. And then, what do we do?" "Find another daycare." He said this absently, sliding a plate into the cabinet. "And then what? Wait for it to happen again?" "Mick, there's a problem here that we can't ignore. We have another appointment with the therapist tomorrow." "Right. Doctors have to make their BMW payments." "You're not listening," she said. And the fist holding the wet rag splashed down into the dishwater.